Welcome to 5 Minutes, your quick dive into the wide-ranging world of insurance, technology, and leadership. I'm Miguel Edwards, and I'll be your guide as we explore these topics that are transforming not just the insurance industry, but the business world at large. Along with sharing observations I've made over the span of my career in insurance, technology, and operations, I'll be chatting with some of the brightest minds in business and leadership. Whether you're a seasoned executive or a rising star, an industry expert, or just curious about how technology is revolutionizing insurance, this is your perfect spot for your weekly dose of insights. This is 5 Minutes.
David, thank you so much for joining us here at InsurTech New York.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. And I was really excited when I saw you were willing to do this because you bring a very, very unique perspective, especially with your varied experience. We were just talking about how you went from claims operations now back into kind of legal regulatory compliance arena.
Exactly. Yeah.
With that said, as you think about the need for us to innovate in this industry, how do you balance the need for innovation with regulatory and risk compliance?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, Miguel, because I think a lot of folks in the industry, they struggle with that response, right? How do you find that right perspective between identifying what's legally permissible, maybe not just today, but 6 months, 12 months, 2 years down the road,
right?
And how do you mitigate any future litigation risk associated with that,
right?
While at the same time recognizing that there are particular tools and that sort of thing available, which could really help maybe move the needle, so to speak. I think with any proper organization, having a very proactive approach to identifying what the trends are in terms of where the legal regulatory compliance guardrails might be sitting, I think is a good way to start with it.
Sure.
Again, we're in a heavily regulated industry. And it's all very state specific.
Right.
So you go, okay, well, if I'm operating on a national basis, where do I even start?
Right.
I think a really good example in this industry, at least in the last few years, when generative AI really exploded on the scene, was with the NAIC. I think they were very forward thinking back in August of 2020, kind of promulgating principles. Exactly.
Yep.
And then in December of 23, they came out with their model AI Bulletin.
Yep.
Right. And then shortly thereafter, Alaska was the first state that adopted, that particular bulletin, followed by New Hampshire, several others. There's like 24 states today, including DC, that have adopted this framework. And you look at that and go, that's actually quite remarkable what they were able to accomplish in a fairly short period of time. And now as an industry, whether you're a carrier, producer, maybe a technology company that assists carriers with that particular solution, you have at least got a general framework to identify, okay, how do you build out the accountability structure? How do you build out an AI committee? How do you work with third-party vendors so that your contracts have legally permissible provisions, which is designed to reduce and mitigate adverse consumer outcomes.
Right.
So I thank the NAIC for putting something out there that as an industry we can look forward to, adopt, and then basically then create the environment where innovation can then happen in a much more safer, responsible, ethical way.
Right.
Whereas if that wasn't present, I think many folks would be struggled or challenged by trying to identify what's a proper way of really going about this process.
Right.
And when that happens, then you tend to freeze up. And then innovation, I think, gets a bit more stifled.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. David, you talk about, the monitoring trends. And, I know how I look at and evaluate things like AI and all of the opportunity. Curious what lens you use as you're seeing these innovations, these interesting applications, particularly of generative AI and agentic AI. What's the lens that you're applying when you see these innovations come up on the scene?
So that's the way I would describe it is identify those use cases that maybe there really wasn't a solution before, or those use cases where I had always wished there was a solution, years ago, and there never was one until perhaps, maybe there is an opportunity now.
Sure.
So in my particular, universe or the part of the insurance industry, I work in, being with an E&S carrier, doing commercial lines, there's a lot of policies that we sell to our small to mid-sized businesses that end up having a pre-suit claim, or maybe a litigated suit comes in the door,
Right.
And then we're retaining an outside law firm to help defend them in that particular situation. Again, when I was in private practice back in the late 90s,
Right.
Out in California, you were always focused in on your customer and providing that best defense and solution for them.
Yep.
Today, providing that best defense and solution isn't just winning at all costs per
Right.
se. It's prevailing in such a way that basically protects their reputation, does so in a cost-effective manner,
Right.
and minimizes the time away from the office and the business doing the needs of the business.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.